In this benchmark video, we'll be testing Apex Legends, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 and Warzone, Counter-Strike 2, Fortnite and Valorant at low, medium and high settings. Starting off with Fortnite on performance mode, lowest settings for the highest FPS possible. FPS is in the top right of the screen, right next to the minimap, and as you can see, we're averaging a cool 380 to around 440 FPS on Battle Royale quads. Now for medium settings on DirectX 12. As you can see now on medium settings, we're averaging around the 250 mark, fluctuating from 220 to 270. Now for the highest settings, everything on Epic on DirectX 12. As you can see, we're averaging a cool 130 FPS on full Epic settings, fluctuating from 120 to around 138. Moving on to Modern Warfare 3 Multiplayer, we have all the lowest settings first up. With the FPS counter on the top left this time, you can see that we are averaging 240 FPS, fluctuating from 215 all the way to 265. Now we have the full medium settings. As you can see in the top left corner, we're averaging 220 FPS on medium settings, fluctuating from 180 all the way to 235 FPS. Now we're testing with full high settings. As you can see, we're averaging 200 FPS on all high settings, fluctuating from around 170 to all the way to 220 FPS on high settings. Now we're off to Warzone, testing at all low settings. As you can see for Warzone, we average 165 FPS on low settings, varying from 155 to 178.
Gas is moving.
Now for Warzone on all medium settings.
Gas is closing in. Relocating the safe zone.
On all medium settings, we are averaging 150 FPS, varying from 135 to 168 FPS. Now for all high on Warzone. Now on all high settings, you can see we're averaging 140 FPS, varying from 132 all the way to 147. Next up, we have Valorant on all low settings. With the FPS counter also on the top left of the screen in green, you can see that we're averaging around 450 FPS on Deathmatch. In a normal ranked or multiplayer match, you will get a little bit higher than Deathmatch as there are more players. Now for all medium settings. Now on medium settings, we are also averaging 450 FPS with no difference with the higher graphics. Now for the all high settings. As you can see, there isn't much difference from low, medium and high settings in terms of frames per second. You will notice though that it does dip into the threes more often with the highest settings, but not a big difference. So an average still of around 400 FPS. Next up we have Apex Legends, starting off on all low settings. As you can see with the FPS counter on the top left in green as well, we're on the FPS limiter averaging 300 FPS, the maximum you can achieve in Apex Legends. Moving on to full high settings on Apex. With the highest settings, you can see that we are averaging 240 FPS, fluctuating from 230 to 255. Next up we have Counter-Strike 2 on Mirage with the lowest settings on native resolution. With the FPS counter on the top right in green, you can see that we're averaging 370 FPS, fluctuating from 340 all the way to 390. Moving on to medium settings. On medium settings, we average 300 FPS, fluctuating quite a bit from 250 all the way to 340. Now for the highest settings in Counter-Strike 2. Now on the highest settings we are fluctuating quite a bit, but we are averaging 250 FPS, and that is moving from 180 to 320 FPS. Thank you for watching this Avenge Computers benchmark video, and thank you for considering buying through us.